I'm Kevin Dorn. Tonight on Fox Rochester News, first at 10. How can we make sure kids are fed when they're not in school? A wake-up call about poverty in Rochester. Prisoner John Horace is a free man, but he reports for his first parole meeting, and we're there today. Millions coming to the Rochester School District for its job in cutting wasteful spending. John?
It's mainly clear to partly cloudy and chilly out there with temperatures in the 20s. Well, what about that storm for the next few days? Does it have any impacts on our weather? Find out coming up in a bit. Fox First at 10 starts now.
From WUHF TV, this is Fox Rochester News, first at 10 in high definition.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, there is sobering news about poverty in Rochester. Community leaders agree it is the root of most problems in the city. And a new effort to make sure kids are fed when they're not in school leads our newscast. Here's Vanessa Herring.
Well, last night we told you the state comptroller said more Rochester families live in poverty than any of the big four cities in New York. We've also reported census statistics show 50% of children live in poverty, one of the highest rates in the nation. During the school year, 72% of students in the city get free or reduced meals. However, in the summer, less than 30% of them get these meals. That leaves a staggering number hungry. The Rochester City School District serves more than 40,000 meals every day.
A hungry child is not going to be focused on learning. He or she is going to be focused elsewhere.
So what do students who receive free or reduced lunch eat when school is out of session for the summer?
We do the emergency food, and everyone thinks that the numbers spike at the holiday time, and the truth of the matter is that the biggest time of need is during July and August.
Less than a quarter of kids that could benefit from summer meals are actually receiving them.
Community organizations say knowledge is power when it comes to summer meals. They gather to address the need and ways to get the meals to the people who need them most.
Increase that promotion and awareness and branding so that people know what summer meals is all about and that they can access it, and then it's open to all kids in the city, and that you don't have to register for a particular kind of program, but you can drop into the city rec centers, or you can even drop into the schools.
We're encouraging people to do things on social media to really spread the word about the availability of summer meals, as well as use of the 211 number that will be available starting in June for families to find out where they can get meals in the summer.
Community partners say if everyone works together to spread the word about the summer food service program, many children who go hungry won't have to. The organizations say they'll have a tough time adding additional sites for summer meals because the funding simply is not there. They say the biggest need is in July because that's when many summer programs end. Vanessa Herring, Fox First at 10.
Now we want to tell you about a big win for Rochester schools. The district, one of just 4 in the state of New York, being recognized for cutting out wasteful spending. It means they're getting millions from the state. Rochester is getting the largest of the grants, totaling $4.5 million. That's because it saved the most of all the districts, more than $10 million, or close to $10 million. Today we talked with Superintendent Vargas, who just returned from Albany. He says this gives the district a chance to focus on student achievement.
What this grant does for us is that allow us to provide our students more services. For example, we are going to spend some of this money on more early childhood education. Our goal is to get 90% of our students or more to read on grade level by 3rd grade.
Now, besides Rochester, the other districts being recognized for being most efficient: Queensbury Unified, Newburgh School District, and the Kenmore-Tonawanda School District. Continuing our coverage of the state budget battle going on, local agencies that provide services to people with developmental disabilities are uniting today to fight budget cuts. Due to an amendment in the state budget, developmental disability service providers would face a 6% cut statewide. That totals about $240 million. It's all part of the governor's plan to address a $1.1 billion reduction in federal Medicaid funding. Well, today, our Tina Shively talked with some of the concerned agencies.
CDS Monarch provides services to close to 1,700 area people with developmental disabilities.
Whether they live in a residence, or go to a day program, or work in the community, or are supported by Medicaid Service Coordination, They all need those supports, and the funding we have received from the government helps us to do that.
Just 2 years ago, it lost $2 million in state funding. So the agency learned how to do more with less, all without compromising their care. This year, another $1.8 million could be taken away. It's part of a 6% cut to funding to every state agency of its kind in this year's budget, a total of $240 million statewide.
There are so many smaller agencies in the Finger Lakes and Southern Tier that are serving specialized communities. If you dismantle that service system, what will be left?
Paul Pickering hopes that question will never be answered. He's the executive director of Catholic Charities Community Services. That agency could lose $360,000 if this measure goes through.
Anything could be possible. We may have to lay off individuals. We may have to stop serving some individuals, which is always difficult.
He says the cuts could backfire and end up costing the state more in the long run.
They get less support. They become more dependent on things like institutional care, emergency rooms, hospitals, those kinds of things, all of which are more expensive.
Pickering is now heading up iCircle, a group of more than 40 local agencies now appealing for help. They sent this letter to area lawmakers, hoping they can help them avoid cuts to staff, resources, and increased burdens on families ahead of April 1st.
Certainly, we would feel that a good budget is, if it takes a little bit longer, is better than an on-time budget that doesn't really meet the needs of the people of New York State.
Tina Shively, Fox First at 10.
Tina says several members of the iCircle group are going to Albany next week to meet face-to-face with local lawmakers in hopes that they can get those budget cuts changed. Today, the State Assembly passed a bill to raise the minimum wage. It passed by a vote of 101 to 44. This after 4 hours of debate. The bill raises the rate from $7.25 to $9 an hour, and it matches a proposal from President Obama, and it would take effect January 1st of next year. But hold on. It's not expected to pass the Senate and go on to the governor's office, so this bill probably not going to happen in New York. The U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds say they might not be able to fly in the Rochester Air Show this summer. That puts the entire show in jeopardy, all because of federal spending cuts. They're keeping the Thunderbirds grounded later this spring. Promoters of the show say the Thunderbirds could take the skies in June if the sequestration cuts end. For now, money that would have been spent on more than 60 performances in nearly 40 cities across the country is being redirected to combat training.
The Thunderbirds are going to be flying the entire month of March, and if the sequestration ends, if the leaders down in our capital come up with a deal, the Thunderbirds will need no more than 3 weeks of practice to get back on board. Their original schedule will be reestablished, and hopefully, and our optimism is that it will happen, we will have an air show come June 1st.
Now, Mike Giordino, the head of the Rochester Airport, expressed his disappointment today over the announcement, but he says, quote, "The promoters and I remain cautiously optimistic the Department of the Air Force will be able to reverse their decision should the budget situation change."
Now, meteorologist John DePasquale with Rochester's most accurate forecast.
Johnny's in for Scotty tonight, and a little chilly night tonight.
Yeah, definitely a little bit on the chilly side. It's quiet, a little bit brisk. Temperatures right now, Kevin, in the 20s. So heading out the door late this evening, definitely need a heavier jacket. Nothing unusual for us lately around here, that's for sure. Kicking off this month of March has been quite chilly. Take a look at the satellite and radar. And clouds did slowly but surely shrink up during the afternoon and early evening, allowing for a nice sunset for many of us. More clouds to our southwest. Ultimately, they do win out and try to move their way in as we go into well, late in the day anyway, or later tonight into tomorrow. You can see the snow to our southwest. Eventually, we might see a little bit of that kind of wrap around into the area Thursday night into Friday morning. You can see the day planner for tomorrow. Looks like a mid to upper 30s kind of day, brisk with more clouds moving in during the day.
But that is the sun.
It is. I do believe we'll see some limited sun during the morning, but not a lot. Don't count on a lot.
Okay.
But at least a little bit.
Okay, see you in a couple of minutes. Thanks,
Sounds
John.
good.
Now we want to get you up to speed on John Horace, 1 day removed from prison. He's the Rochester man who spent nearly 16 years in prison for raping a comatose woman and getting her pregnant. The woman delivered the baby successfully. Today was the first time he had to check in with the Office of Parole. It happened on South Avenue. This morning, Horace emerged walking slowly with a cane after spending almost 2 hours in the office. Horace was denied parole as recently as last summer. He will remain under the supervision of the parole office until 2021. As part of his release, he also has to register as a level 2 sex offender, which he already has. He's living in the city of Rochester. Police still looking for a hit-and-run driver that killed a father on North Goodman Street in Rochester last night. 37-year-old Harry Andrews was killed when he was putting gas into an SUV on the side of the road. And that's when police say a car driving by slammed into him and then took off. Right now, lawmakers are pushing for tougher penalties for people who don't report an accident before they leave the scene.
And I'm just going to miss him being here. Just miss him altogether.
Unfortunately, in today's day and age, you'd think with so many people around, these would be decreasing. Unfortunately, they seem to be on the rise. Hopefully, this will turn it in the other direction.
Unfortunately, there were no witnesses last night. Police are looking at surveillance video right now to try and identify the car and the person responsible. If you have any information, you are asked to call 911. A woman from Georgia is facing arson charges locally. Police say 20-year-old Kimberly Smith started a fire at a house on Columbia Avenue in January of 2012. This happened to be the second fire at this house in one day. Smith's been charged with the second fire, not the first. Nobody was hurt. Investigators say Smith lit the fire because she was fighting with somebody who lived in a second-floor apartment. She's been charged with arson previously. The outpouring of support continues for a murdered RIT professor. Students and staff celebrated the life of Edlin Chun today. More than 100 people were in attendance this afternoon. Several even shared stories and memories of Chun. Kim Brummer is the CEO of NeighborWorks Rochester. Chun volunteered with that group and also served as a board member. She says they're still having a hard time dealing with her murder.
And it was cold and heartless, and she was so caring and giving, and so it's hard to reconcile those two differences. And you just, even today, it's been a month of kind of processing, and it's hard to still make any sense of this.
Edlin Chun's body was found last month in a ravine at Tryon Park on Rochester's east side. A former neighbor and a woman are charged in her death. Coming up on Fox, hundreds of bikers ready to take on a 100-mile mission to raise awareness about missing kids. Then later in Sports Extra, a former Buffalo Bill calls it quits. John Kutchko's got the story. And next, all systems are just about go at the Vatican as the conclave gets ready to elect a new Catholic pope. We've got the latest.
You're watching Kevin Doran, Chief Meteorologist Scott Hetzko, Sports Director John Kutchko. This is Fox Rochester News, first at 10 in high definition.